Hajime! Welcome back to Comic-Jutsu. JT McRoberts here with you once again, and today we're going to walk you through another episode of Rarities. This week we're going to take a look at my collection of comic book convention programs, well, specifically my programs for Heroes Convention, and this is going to cover almost an entire 30-year span. Makes me old to say that, believe it or not, but I've been going to these for quite a while, since I was a little guy all the way back in high school. So here you go. Believe it or not, this is not the first one. This is the second one. I could not find the first one, the first program that I have from 1992. But this is the one from 93. Here it features a cover by Joe Quesada. I believe in 92, I could be mistaken, is when they have Dave Sim. And the reason I mention that is because Sim was very influential to me in my development as an independent creator and storyteller. There are a few key moments that happened to me early on in going to these conventions. And he said, you know, if you want to do Spider-Man comics, if you want to tell stories with Spider-Man, or you find that you just want to draw these characters, he said, you know, honestly, you don't have to work for the major companies. You don't have to work for Marvel. So don't worry about what it takes to get into those companies. Plus, you know, they're only going to tell a certain type of story anyway. Now, at the time, I wasn't familiar with Cerebus or Dave Sim or anything. I just saw that they were having this panel. It was listed here in the program, and I thought, well, you know, I'll go and sit in. He said, if you want to do Spider-Man, just do your own Spider-Man. You just change the name and you change the powers into something else. But you can essentially tell the same kind of story. And the example he gave was Dart Man. I don't know if he was making this up off the top of his head, or if it's his go-to fictional character for seminars like this, or something that he had in his back pocket that he never used for Cerebus. But he says Dart Man, he shoots darts out of his wrists for whatever reason, and the darts can join together like Spider-Man's webbing. And you know, it just set off the light bulb over my head, and I just thought, you know what, he's absolutely right. Now here you can see portfolio reviews listed. They don't do these as much anymore, and I think for the most part, like, Marvel doesn't even come to Heroes Convention in Charlotte anymore. But I used to go to these portfolio reviews, and the other influential encounters that I had was with Mike Carlin, the editor at DC, who complimented my work, and he asked me about my favorite artists and whatnot. And I said Steve Rude at the time, believe it or not, because I had just gotten really big into Nexus. Here you can see 94. So again, the first one was 1992. So I literally just celebrated my anniversary this past summer with Heroes Convention. And this is, we had, now I didn't look through these ahead of time, so we're kind of discovering this. You know, this was right after Jack Kirby had died, so they put a dedication in here. You know, I'm not going to be able to flip through every single page of every one of these. That'll take like 3 hours or whatever. But if there's one that people think looks interesting, you know, we can take a closer look to it. Like Allred. But anyway, so back to Mike Carlin. And he was, you know, he was complimentary for the most part. Here, this was the year The Crow came out, or, yeah, the year after. We had James O'Barr there. Had a few things signed from him. I was a huge fan of both the comic book and the film, of course. But I got into the comic because of the film. And I went into my local shop at the time, and I asked about the book. except I misremembered the title, and I asked for The Raven. I was like, yeah, it's this comic called The Raven. You know, Brandon Lee is going to be he's going to be in this film. You haven't heard about it, The Raven? And the guy looked at the guy behind the counter was like, what? What are you talking about, The Raven? Like, yeah, it's Edgar Allan Poe. But yeah, so eventually I got a hold of The Crow from one of the other local comic shops. I saw it on the shelf, and I was like, oh, well, there it is. I totally forgot the title. I misspoke when I asked for it initially. But I picked it up early on and absolutely fell in love with it. Just the raw, chaotic energy, and also the pathos, and also the outlaw, violent and horrific appeal to it. Coming in 1995, Jackson Geiss's Duel. I don't think this ever came out, or George Perez's Gladiator. Final word from Shelton Drum. Again, Comic-Jutsu is not sponsored or affiliated with Heroes Convention in any way. For some reason, I have 2 copies of this. I think one was for my GF at the time. I honestly don't remember. It's been a while. Here we have 1995 with Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti's Ash on the cover. Speaking with Joe Quesada was another influential moment for me. I'm jumping all over the place here because there's a million artists in these books. Finishing up the Mike Carlin story, I mean, he told me to just keep going and to keep working at it. And he pointed out a few areas where my storytelling was a little bit wonky, and he said, in some cases, just tell the story clearly, even if it's plain. Because I was very influenced by the Image kind of thing at the time, and I had crazy, energetic panels and characters breaking the panel boards and all this kind of stuff. And he said, just focus on just telling the story in a clear manner sometimes, just to make sure that the audience got it. And he didn't tell me, don't do this other stuff. He just said, so just make sure that you have those moments where they're clearly getting the story, where it's being told to them in a manner where it's not confusing. And that was very important to me. And I also had a portfolio review with an assistant editor. I don't remember who it was. An assistant editor from Marvel. This was another big influential one for me. And unfortunately, what came out of that conversation was that I should pick up Erik Larsen books, because Erik was still with Spider-Man at the time, and I should draw more like Erik Larsen. And while I enjoy Erik Larsen books, and I'm a huge fan of Savage Dragon, I don't want to draw like Erik Larsen, and I don't draw anything like Erik Larsen. And I just thought that was horrible advice. So between that and then sitting down at the Dave Sim panel, where he says, just make your own Spider-Man, boom, there you go. Comic-Jutsu would not be here today without that. And I've spent my life ever since making sure I understood storytelling both visually and through the written word. I'm sure that's boring you to death. But again, like I said, I can't flip through every single page of the... Oh yeah, this is the year Neil Gaiman was there. And I got to talk to Neil Gaiman very briefly. I didn't ask him any crazy questions. I asked him something in one of the panels, but I don't remember what it was. It wasn't like a... Sometimes I'll really drop some weird philosophical questions about storytelling or whatever on these guys and make them, answer it on the spot. But with him, I couldn't come up with anything. It was just such a great panel. I was just listening to him just talk about everything. And he actually recommended Supreme, Alan Moore's Supreme at the time. And Moore had just launched it, where he took over Supreme and remade it. And I picked up a few issues there at Heroes Con and instantly fell in love with it. So anyway, we're going to have to speed up so this video is not 5 hours long. Okay, so that was 97. Jackie Chan on the cover there. Does that mean Mike Golden was there that year? I honestly don't remember. I did not speak to Mike Golden. but there you go. 1999. This is one of the big years where they really focused on Perez. And I remember they had the unfinished pages to, at the time, Justice League versus the Avengers. Oh, this was the year Harlan Ellison was there. And I did speak with Harlan Ellison as well. Another guy that just scared me to death. One who I just really liked listening to more. I did not ask him any difficult questions because I was honestly scared he would just call me an idiot. So there you go. 2000, Heroes Gone. Here we've got the rise of the Gorilla imprint. I really enjoyed the Gorilla books. They must not have sold well because aside from Empire and I guess the Telos, I only had I bought the collection of that later. The rest of them kind of fizzled out after just a few issues. But Empire had a few iterations, which I really liked. If you're not familiar with Empire, that's kind of Mark Waid's take on what if Doctor Doom or Doctor Doom-like supervillain actually succeeded in destroying all of his enemies. And what would he do? Oh, here we go. There's a schedule of events in there. And mind you, I haven't looked at these in forever. And believe me, they were scattered everywhere in comic boxes, closets. I mean, some of these have been here for a while. Oh, Lou Ferrigno. Lou Ferrigno was my first encounter with the pay-to-play aspect of dealing with your childhood heroes. Because he had an array of photos on his table. This was, 2000. And everything had a price. It was $45, $50, $55. Whatever it was, you had to buy a photo for him to sign. And if you wanted a picture, you had to pay like $25 for that, like a photograph of you and him together. So, needless to say, I did not do that. I thought, man, that really sucks. Little did I know that that would be the wave of the future. The pay-to-play aspect of conventions. But, it's a secondary source of income, at least for aging creators, which I'm a huge proponent of. I mean, these guys have given a lot of themselves to the fans over the years. They deserve to make a little bit of money. Yeah, I haven't flipped these open since I was at the convention, but I've held on to them all these years later. Oh, here we go. This was the year they had the Avengers JLA. So it was 2001. Right there. And they had the art framed and hanging out on the convention floor, and you could walk by and look at it, like 6, 7 pages, whatever it was. Nat Jones, he was one of the guys I talked to. I remember him. He was really cool. He reviewed my portfolio for me. So I recently learned that artists actually hate the process of portfolio reviews. I was always really grateful to everybody. I mean, even the doofy assistant editor from Marvel, I mean, at least, he was doing a portfolio. They had scheduled portfolio reviews, so it wasn't like I walked up and said, hey, look at my portfolio. And I only did that with 1 or 2 artists, okay? And that was just because it came up naturally in the conversation. I was looking at their stuff, and they saw that I was carrying a portfolio, that kind of thing. Otherwise, I just stuck to the portfolio reviews. But apparently artists, they really hate that when you ask them about, you ask them to review your portfolio. There you go, Bill Sienkiewicz. And this is when they introduced Echo. 2003. Okay, so my collection is about to get really spotty because that was the time that I had helped form Mutantville Productions, and we started focusing a lot more on film projects. So I started to drift away from Heroes Convention. Plus, over the next few years, I felt like Marvel really disrespected their fans. So it helped drive me away from comics for a little while. But, I think that's how relationships are with comic books. Just like any real relationship, you have ups and downs. And if it's meant to be, you'll come back to it. They're celebrating Sheldon's 50th birthday back then. Wow. So there you go. 2005. Got a color interior there. Heroes Aren't Hard to Find celebrates silver anniversary. Oh, that was when Gene Colan was there. I spoke to Gene Colan at length and listened to his seminar about storytelling, and I got to ask him a few questions, and he was really open about it. But also I was able to commission him to do a character sketch, but instead of doing like, you know, Dracula or, you know, some character that he had worked on over the years, I actually had him do a character sketch of one of my characters. So I still have the sketch today. Maybe I'll show it one day. And yeah, so it means a lot to me to have a Gene Colan piece of artwork of a character that I created. And he was just so great to talk to. I mean, those older creators at the Heroes Convention, well, I mean, probably any kind of convention, but Heroes Con, they've always been really cool. Very gracious with their time. You know, they don't always have a lot of huge lines, you know, like the hot young artists will have, you know, lines just all through the convention center and some other, you know, legendary artists and whatnot. But sometimes you can find the guys, some of the older creators that, you know, haven't been as active in recent years, and they won't have a lot of fans at their table, and you can get a lot more time in speaking with them. And in doing that, you can get a lot of great advice. Now again, like I said, if you want to see any of these in closer detail, we can go check them out. Just let me know in the comments below. Oh, this is cool. Indie Island by Scott Campbell. Mark Miller, Tony Harris. Yep. So I have little stories like that attached to a lot of these. And here we are getting down to my last few, because after this, I was just so entrenched in my work in film production and also with the Mad Monster Party Film Festival that I didn't have as much time to go to comic conventions. And I skipped several years at Heroes Con, you know, falling in and out of love with comic books. It really depends on what's being published at the time. There's the classic map of the convention hall. We'll skip forward to 2022. This past summer. Had a good time there. As always, of course, with the advent of the environment that we're in, I don't like to stay at conventions for the entire weekend anymore. I would rather just kind of dip in and out, figure out, you know, which panels and events that are the most interesting or the most engaging, and I'll go to those, and I just kind of get out. I dip. I just don't stay to socialize as much as I used to. But anyway, there you go. So I highly recommend it if you're in the area. If you're a comic collector or a comic fan, Heroes Convention is a great show. Again, we're not affiliated with Heroes Con, or Heroes Aren't Hard to Find in any way, shape, or form. This is just me as a fan and a creator, sharing some of my experiences with you. And again, if you want to see a closer look at any of those issues, let me know in the comments below, and we'll flip back and take a look at them. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends about it. If my graphic novel is available at the time that you watch this, go buy that. Find all my links down below. Thanks for watching. Mate!